thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura, and today I am sharing my least favorite books that I read this year, which I don't like criticizing books because I've never written a book. I know it's really difficult, and I admire people who write a full book and get it published, especially books that do well and have high ratings on Goodreads, right? Like, that's awesome. So I don't like hating on books. But the books I'm talking about today are ones that I went into thinking I would like or that have great reviews and everybody's raving about, and I just thought it wasn't that good, so I just think they're very overrated. And there's also like one book in particular on this list that I just find incredibly offensive. And it's a book that is so popular, so when a book is insanely popular, I don't feel too bad criticizing it because it's getting so much praise already that I'm okay with putting my negative opinion out there, right? And I am filming this video earlier in the month. So far I've read 92 books this year, and I plan on hitting close to 100, but I am going to think positively and hope that I don't read any more bad books this year so I can go ahead and film this now. But I'm hoping to read some more awesome books. So my best books of 2022 I will be filming closer to the end of the month because there's a couple books I want to read this month that I'm hoping I'll love, and maybe they'll be included on the best books of 2022. But let's kick things off, which, by the way, I will have the books I'm talking about in the timeline listed. So if it's a book you love and you don't want to hear me criticize it, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I don't like it when people insult a book that's dear to me, right? So if it's a book you love, you can just skip past it and not hear what I have to say about it. Anyway, the first book is a very popular one, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This one has a 4.4 on Goodreads, and so many people talk about how fantastic it is and how the reveal at the end was so crazy and how they hadn't seen it coming and it was so creepy, and the romance. I didn't think it was creepy. I thought the twist, which it's hardly even a twist, was so lazy and so dumb. And then the romance, like, were we supposed to be wanting those two people to get together? Because I was not rooting for them to get together and I did not care about their relationship. And yeah, I just didn't think it was a very well written book, if I'm being honest. And I actually made a book rant review for this video back in February, and it was my most watched YouTube video. It had over 20,000 views, and I ended up taking it down because, one, I watched the video like months later. I watched it again in like September or October, and I just didn't like the video. I didn't think I was very articulate, and I was just kind of all over the place. So I didn't think it was a good representation of my channel, and I would like to think my videos have improved since then. But also, it was a negative video, right? And that too, I don't want my channel associated with negativity, which, like I said, sometimes, you know, if a book is getting so much praise, I don't mind putting my negativity out in the world as far as that goes. But anyway, I ended up taking that video down. But I just thought this was not as exciting or thrilling as everybody says, and I did not care about the relationship. And yeah, the reveal was just so dumb. And then because everybody loves it so much, the more praise I hear for this book, it makes me dislike it all the more. So I gave it 1 star on Goodreads, and I was just so disappointed in this book. And then to follow this up, I read a second Colleen Hoover book called Layla. And this one, I will say, which this was recommended to me, that's why I read it. And this one did have a better reveal / twist. There's like 2 reveals that happen, and I thought those were better done than Verity was, so I will give it that. But this one had the problem again where the relationship, the romance in it, I was not feeling it at all, and I did not want these people to get together, and it was not romantic. And I know Colleen Hoover writes, you know, about bad relationships, unhealthy relationships. That's the whole thing with it starts with us or it ends with us, whatever. But with Layla and Verity, I think they were relationships that we were supposed to be rooting for, right? I could be wrong, but she wrote it in a way that made it seem like we should want these people to get together. And I didn't want them to get together, and I didn't care about the characters, and I didn't like them. And I have a spoiler review on Goodreads for Layla, so if you want to hear my spoilery reasons why I disliked this book, you can follow me on Goodreads, which I will link down below. And I have a list for the 2022 books I have read so far this year, so you can find Layla there. And in it, I talk spoilers about my issues with that book. But overall, I just think Colleen Hoover is very overrated. Part of me is just like, oh, you know, good for her. She's having a lot of success right now, so that's cool. But she's just not the author for me. And then next up is a book I didn't finish. I made it 75% of the way through before I stopped, and that is The Godfather by Mario Puzo. Again, this one is insanely popular, so I have no problem insulting it because it's getting so much praise as it is. And this book, honestly, it made me so angry. And I have a book rant review / book versus movie video I did for this, so you can watch that. It is a book first movie, but a lot of that video is me complaining about the book and my issues with it because it was just so sexist. And I know, like, the mafia was sexist, so don't play Mario Puzo because that's just the way it was. But I can blame Mario Puzo because this is a work of fiction and he never even met anyone in the mafia. So he chose not to give us an interesting female character and instead made them all just so one-dimensional, and they were all just like victims of the men in this book in one way or another. And the only female character whose perspective we get Kay, but very little of Kay. And then the other perspective we get is this bridesmaid, I forget her name. She has a full chapter segment dedicated to her. And yet it is all about her getting reconstruction surgery on a private part of her body, and that is what her story is all about. So all the female characters either had to do with sex and or being beaten up by the men in their lives. And it was just so frustrating. And Mario Puzo, he said that a lot of the phrases the Godfather says, Don Corleone, like a lot of his words of wisdom, he said he was inspired by his grandmother, and he quoted his grandmother in this book. So clearly he had positive female influences in his life, and yet in the book he chose not to have a strong female character at all. And there's also an unnecessary segment where they're making racist remarks, and it added nothing to the story, so I don't know why he felt the need to include that either. So this one was just really frustrating. Like, I have never felt so angry while reading this book. And don't get me started on Johnny Fontaine, who is made out to be like a good guy. And his ex-wife is thinking about him about how like, oh, he's such a kind, good person. So clearly that's what Mario Puzo wants us to think about him. And yet there's so many stories about him that show what a horrible misogynistic person he is. And it'll talk about like things about his character as if it's something reputable or something decent. And it's like, what? Like, that is like so creepy and disgusting. Why are you writing this like it's a positive thing to his character? Yeah, this book made me so upset. And I was so disappointed too. I like the movies, but the book, it was horrible. And I just have never felt so angry. And maybe that's what it means to feel triggered, right? Because I just felt this anger and anxiety growing in me. And I just felt like I was about to burst because I just couldn't stand it and I stopped reading it. So yeah, not a pleasant experience and not a book I would recommend. And then another book I want to talk about is one that I don't have strong feelings about, but I just found it annoying, and it put me in a reading slump, and it made me just not care, which having a book that just makes you not care and makes you feel bored is also just terrible, right? And that is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. And this is one that I thought I would like too, but by the way, it has a 3.97 on Goodreads. The Godfather has a 4.38. Anyway, Incredibly Loud and Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close is about this boy whose dad dies in the September 11th attacks. But then, a year after his dad has died, he finds this clue, and his dad had sent him on scavenger hunt, so he thinks his dad is sending him on another hunt. From before he died, he had placed this clue, and so it's his way of reconnecting with his dad. But honestly, I just did not care, and I had to force myself to finish this book. I wish I would have just DNF'd it. It wasn't even, I wish I hadn't even bothered to finish it, but yeah, so this one, I was just bored and didn't care, and I guess that's all I have to say about it. Which brings me to The Snowman by Joe Nesbo. I have a book versus movie for this one as well. And this one, I enjoyed reading it well enough. However, it is a mystery, and it was so obvious who the main person is, who the killer is, and yet it took the detective so long. He accused 4 different people. He accused everyone else around him before finally narrowing it down to the only person left that there was to blame. And so that was frustrating because it was it is so obvious who this is, and yet he is not figuring it out. And then this one also had some sexist attributes to it with the way they talked about women. So I didn't like that. But yeah, so this one, I didn't hate it, but I definitely had some issues with it. And like I said, the mystery, there wasn't much of a mystery because I knew who it was, and it was just frustrating that it took so long for them to hurry and just get to it. And also the movie is notoriously bad. There's 15 pages worth of script that didn't get filmed. And so the movie just isn't well done, and it has a lot of holes in it. But yeah, you can watch my book versus movie if you want to hear more about The Snowman. And that's basically it. I gave 2 stars to Where the Crawdads Sing as well as White Noise. And White Noise, and again, were books that I just did not care. And I had to force myself to finish them because I just didn't care, right? That's so hard. If I'm not invested in the story and in the characters, and if I'm not connected to them in some way, then what's even the point, right? And so both of them, I finished them, but I had to force myself to finish them. And then Where the Crawdads Sing, That one was an easy read, and I did want to see how things would play out, but I just thought the dialogue was, I just thought it was poorly written. Like, the dialogue was just very wooden and not realistic and very cheesy and cliche at times. And the storyline itself was just, I don't know, I had a hard time connecting with that book as well. And again, this one is one that people love, and I was just kind of like, I'm not feeling it. But yeah, that wraps it up for my least favorite books I read this year. It wasn't too many. Overall, I've read a lot of fantastic books. My favorite books of 2022 video will have much more books because I just read so many fantastic books this year. And so I'm excited to just gush about all of my favorites. But yeah, that will be for later in the month. So yeah, comment down below if you read any of these books and what you thought about them. And let me know what your least favorite books that you have read this year are, so I can stay away from them. But don't forget to like and subscribe if you have not subscribed to my channel, but like this video. It really helps support the video and the channel when you like it and you leave comments. It really helps boost my channel in the algorithm when that happens. So really appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.